everyone, back to another episode of our podcast called Coffee Breakdown. And just to remind you, the objective of this podcast is really to shed light on the more human side of science and the more creative aspects of science, including communication and other things that are sort of behind the scenes. So keep in mind, it is a learning process. All of us are here are to learn, including the speakers that we have with us today. The guest is Tobias and Ekaterina, who are joining us as part from the Fusion EP Talks channel. Now, I've known Katerina since Katya, I will call you Katya, from our master's program, where we studied together in France for about a year. Tobias, unfortunately, I've just had the pleasure to meet you at this right before this recording. So I'm looking forward to getting to know you over the course of this conversation. And so welcome to the podcast first. And I want to start off with more general question of like, what is this EP Talks channel that you've put together, and sort of what is the motivation of why you put it together in the first place? So I guess we'll start with Tobias.
Yeah, thank you, Aaron, for inviting us here to this channel, and welcome as well. What is Fusion EP Talks? It actually was grown out of from Fusion EP, like the extended master program we had, and it first started 3 years ago, 2018, in the end of 2018, and another member of Fusion EP, the master program, Alexis, started it like with the original intention, which is still it's really in the original till now, to keep the network of students first together, like from the Fusion EP master program, but as well as you already mentioned in introduction, really nice, to offer a platform to learn and to practice, like to give presentation, to learn something new, and just to offer this opportunity to master students, PhD students, and everybody around.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's interesting though that you mentioned this. So great that it came out of the master program. Actually, I didn't realize it was set up to particularly keep everyone in touch. I know Katya invited me to give a talk like when you guys were starting, or when she started at least with the group. So that was interesting, but I didn't realize the objective was to keep everyone together. But that's also nice. So then I have unfortunately only kept up partially with all of the presentations that you put together. It is mostly students, or is it also like professors and senior scientists as well?
But indeed, as Tobias said, it started as a project mostly for graduates of Fusion EP program, but now it grows and it extended a lot. So I would say most of our speakers are from other programs, are PhD students from all over the world. But indeed, we try to keep a Fusion EP program community, and we try to invite its graduates. And in addition to this, we started a special set of talks that are called master classes, where we invite experienced scientists with, let's say, more than 15 years of experience in fusion plasmas. So these are special occasions. But I think we both have this platform for younger scientists to share their research and to practice, and also to learn from more experienced scientists. So we try to include different generations, people with different backgrounds, and also people who would probably not meet during the normal conference, because not everybody attends them due to various reasons, like lack of time, or it requires some expenses. And also for younger researchers, it requires to present your own work, and probably in the beginning of your PhD, or even during your master's, you don't have it yet. So they can join as well. So now it started from Fusion EP master program, but now these are various people with really different background.
Wow, that's interesting. So then it's more of, as you said, like a platform for educating, or in the sense giving the students a platform to try and present. So I guess a question from me is, well, what type of presentations do you see? Are they typically of very high polished quality, even from the students, or is it really you can tell that some people have difficulties in communicating what they're working on? How does the platform actually help them in that way?
That's a really good question. Like, I think it's in communication, like I take a bit apart, it's always interesting, like who do you want to reach, like who's your audience? And we have a really broad audience actually, like mostly we have most students, PhD students, but also like scientists. And really to communicate your science, your key points to them, it varies like depending on like what do you want to reach. And well, of course you see different success in bringing the message over to the audience. It can be like first, like your English or like your native language is not English, then you have like this kind of thing you can learn. Also, you like how you present how you structure presentation, how you build up your slides. We do in the end like collect a survey from the audience, and also like from our point, we occasionally like drop in some like hints what we think what was good, what could be improved. But yes, that's we see difference for sure. And I think also it depends, like some we see it in the survey, let's say that way. Some truly really like enjoy one kind of presentation, let's say that way, really like to data, to face, to results, and the other just like to tip another point they never heard, or they hear of it but they don't like get into it. So it's the first time, the first contact about this part of fusion or plasma physics in a more general way. So it's
That's
really
from
interesting to observe.
that's from the audience perspective, like they've never heard the material before, or you mean
I
even the
think so.
presenters, sometimes there are certain things they never fully presented or fully looked into.
Both.
Okay.
You get like this kind of question from the audience. Sometimes you didn't look it from that perspective. You know the answer, but it's just like, yeah, there's another interesting angle of viewing it that way. But also we have like really also our audience is not all into fusion science. Like some are like first maybe students who want to get into touch with physics in general, or some people are just like from magnetics or whatever around. So they don't have this whole picture of fusion, what we studied in our masters, for example.
I guess that's like an added advantage of your platform, is that you can cross all the different disciplines inside fusion. Because it's, I mean, we all study under the banner of fusion, but we know it's quite diverse and wide of a field. So that is nice to have that. I think sometimes it's very easy to fall into your bubble, like your little world of very specific physics, that and then you don't get any interaction or any input from other people. So that's an interesting point. Yeah, it's definitely helps to see things from a different angle, um, uh, in terms of feedback as well. Okay, and now you mentioned, of course, yeah, the English issue is always, so English is the language of science nowadays in these modern times, but it's true that is a large communication barrier for some people. So the question, like for me, I try not to let the English get in, like the skill in English get in the way of the content. But I suppose some people may have difficulties doing that. Let's say, because I have a bit of an advantage being a native English speaker. So is there any tips that is not like, aside from, you know, taking language classes and stuff like that, that you can give to improve, like for people who are not very proficient, but that they can easily do to get their point across a bit better?
But I think that attending various conferences and events such as talks at our platform, they could help. So direct communication also with native speakers helps a lot to improve your own skills. And I think at online platforms or at some informal communication without too much pressure, it works a bit easier. It doesn't mean that you have to go straight to a 1 hour long talk. But for instance, if you have huge problems with English and at the end of some presentation, you will just ask a couple of questions, that will be a tiny bit of help, and it will improve later on. And hopefully you will get better soon.
Well, that's true. Practice does make perfect in most
Like
cases.
step by step.
Yeah.
I would like to add one thing to that, like which I realized myself, like that's something I learned myself, and I try to practice it every time and sometimes forget it. It's like just to be slow. I usually, and I hear it from many people, they want to try to give all the information they have. They forget their English, well, knowledge, kind of, how they speak. And or they like not really sure about their language, and so they try to be like really accurate in what they're saying. But if you take your time to think and to pause, it also helps the audience to grasp what we're saying. And if you're really not that clear in articulating, or you forget the vocabulary, they have time to think about what you mean, and they can translate it for themselves, let's say that way. So that's maybe one advice I like to give people who are struggling with English, or like in general, like with a foreign language.
No, I think that's very good advice. I think even people who speak English natively can benefit from such advice. Speak slower and people will understand you, right? But it's true. It's good. One thing that is sort of like I found as a benefit during presentations is also to have like on your slides some keywords, not like giant blocks of text, but some keywords or key figures that kind of remind you what you wanted to say in each point. But do you find often that the students or even professors that come and present on your platform use the slides in that manner, or are they used in different ways?
I think in general, it goes quite well so far. I've seen many high quality presentations where slides really supported the presentations. They were not overloaded by text. They were not empty. They were really engaging. So I'm very happy to see what our speakers provide us. And I think that's another advantage for younger students to attend such presentations, to see how it can work and what tips they can get to improve their own presentation skills.
That's true. And that's also like one big advantage we're putting our talks, like if their speaker allows and like if the rights goes on YouTube. So not all them can join them. And later you have also the opportunity, like if you have a similar topic, you can look into it and see how they did it and what you like and what you don't like and adapt it. And that's good that you mentioned, Ashley, because like in the beginning we started like before Corona with like Zoom webinars, which was not quite familiar at this time. But you could really see like they were using all the technology they had, like of this web platform. For example, if you present, you can like have your own slides or notes down, for example, in the presentation mode, where you can add stuff for yourself, which is like a good advice if you do it. And you can also see like how to use images or visuals to improve what you say. Yes.
Yeah, that's true. Like I'm always impressed by some people's like way of using slides. I think I recently saw a talk, but unfortunately not on your channel, but on a different seminar, where a guy was doing an evaluation of different methods, and then he made like like an RPG kind of like items with different stats, and then like each method had like different stats. So it was like a really clever way to show your information in a way that your audience, who was other students, would be like very, keen about paying attention to, because they're just like, that's really clever, right? So
True. That's so true.
have you guys seen any like notable examples over your many presentations of like a good way of doing presentations?
It's hard to remember right away, but I think some animations help, and some pictures and even short videos of the experiment, if that is available and applicable. I think that usually attracts more audience more, and it helps explaining your topic.
Yes, indeed. It's like don't have like this kind of example, or I don't remember it at least, because we had like almost 100 talks, I guess, right now. So we don't have this RPG like example you had, which is really like a nice idea of putting it together. But usually, what I remember like is really, because I like it personally, and it's my type of learning. Like if you have visuals, like for example, it's not a good but a wave, or like something you try to connect with images, like what you're going to say. That's something I usually notice, and I really like and encourage to do it more, because it helps me at least to remember stuff and to link the knowledge.
But what Katya said is also very, very interesting.
Absolutely.
Like with the videos, I've known they're sort of, in my experience, they're sort of hit or miss. There's always the issue with technical, the videos don't play, or it's not the right viewer, or it's not the right, who knows. So, but that aside, even then, like some videos are I find also sometimes can be distracting away from what the speaker is trying to say. Do you find that there's a balance there, or are most videos like acceptable or well done, let's say?
Of course, it's better to find a balance there. And I would say personally, if there is a video, it should be really short, and it should show the most important part of your experiment or whatever you do. So it shouldn't overload your presentation, of course. But as a supportive tool, I think it's helpful.
Okay. Yeah, that's true. I think if you like zoom in on a particular part, or you tell everybody this is what we're focusing on, the rest is just fluff, but or at least for this purpose is fluff, then that helps a lot. That's true.
And of
Okay.
course, indeed, you should check if it actually works. But in case of our platform, we usually meet with the speaker half an hour before the presentation. And some might think that why half an hour? It's too long. But in fact, it's exactly the right time to check whether things like videos and animations are properly working.
Yeah, I guess it gives them a bit of extra time if they need to fix it, right?
Exactly.
It's worse to know that it doesn't work, but then have to present immediately anyway, right? It's like,
Exactly.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, no, okay, then like I guess aside from the channel, the platform, I guess, what are your interests in science communication? Like why did you join to put together this platform? Really, was it just for the community, or do you have some sort of like personal goal or thing you want to improve in the community?
For me, it's a number of things. Well, of course, I'm happy to contribute for the community to grow, and for students to have such presentations available. But from personal side, it helped me a lot to learn how to coordinate my work, how to work in a team, how to speak publicly as well, how to present my work, because I was a speaker before, and then Alexei invited me to join the team. And I've seen a lot how it's challenging to promote your research and to attract people, to make the audience grow. So it's better things that actually help me later on in my own research.
Exactly. And like, well, I don't have so much to add because, well, Katja already told the main points. And it's really interesting because every team member we made like, okay, like why are you joining? Like, what do you try to gain, or what do you think you can then bring into, or what do you want to learn? And usually it really arounds these topics Katja mentioned. So for me, it was also like, okay, I know the knowledge is only as good as you can, like, as people know it. Like if you have the biggest knowledge and nobody knows it, really that's not knowledge used. So it's really important to transport it, and also to work in a team, to be like more, well, usually fusion is like around the world actually, like I think almost every science is around the world. So you really need to work on your keep in contact, how to communicate to different cultures, different time zones. It's like a really small playground, this platform on the background, and you can try, or you can look on what kind of skill you want to improve, and you find everything in there, and you can try to work on that one. So sometimes I myself notice, okay, well, I need to work now on communication, or now I need to bring a structure in there, or like whatever. There are like so many different kinds you can really improve it, and of course this helps you in your research, in your daily life as well. It's really universal, and I really like it.
Yeah, I think that's you bring up a good point that a lot of these skills are just say transferable to your own research and your own, let's say, scientific career as well, in terms of how to advertise, how to reach an audience, how to build a community in some ways, right? And work with others. Now, that is something I think that is really sort of not well taught, I would say, in scientific education, right? Like we're very good in technical stuff, but not so much on these other aspects, which are just as crucial, if not sometimes more crucial, right? Like knowing the science, people sort of, well, they don't assume you do, but like like most people are sort of like, okay, you're a scientist, so you must know something, right? But if you can't say it, if you can't tell anybody, then they start to question you, right? So I think that's very important. I guess from my perspective, like which because of in starting this podcast as well, there were a number of things that I just didn't know we're going to be part of doing this sort of effort. So in that aspect, did you come across any like interesting challenges in getting your platform set up, or doing the advertisement, or getting speakers or something like that?
Well, of course, there are a number of technical challenges, and I know our media team is doing a great job on processing videos, and I'm sure they've learned a lot about that from side of hosting team. I think even how to use Zoom, which is now common during pandemic times. But in the beginning, we were struggling a bit with the settings and what options it offers. And once we had to face Zoom bombing, unfortunately, and that was quite an experience. And after that, we learned a lot about Zoom safety and how to make sure it never happens again.
Okay.
So
What
things
is
like
this?
that.
What is this? I have never heard this term before. What does it mean? Or what happened?
Well, in the previous day you didn't have like this rating room feature, so you could just join a Zoom talk. And then some people had the option to hijack the camera, to hijack the other cameras, to hijack the name, and they used it, well, in our case, for adult stuff, say that way. And it's well, honestly, I never saw the point why doing that, but some people enjoyed maybe, I don't know. Well,
I mean, that must have been terrible for the presenter and everyone else, but
it was for everyone was terrible because nobody was like knowing what was happening, and well, we managed quite well, but
Yeah.
it was quite a memory.
Yeah, looking back, I guess, you could laugh at it a bit. It's good to laugh at it.
It was
a
not
bit.
that fun at the moment,
No,
but at least now we've learned how to deal with it.
So is it just like increased security on Zoom, or is there like other things that you had to learn?
Mostly also having waiting room and disabling people to turn off their camera or microphone during the presentation. So there is a number of strict rules that you can apply to make sure that only you and the speaker can share the screen and speak. And at the end, as you know, we have question and answer session. And during that time, the host manages questions, and only the host can unmute people. So that helps, I would say.
Okay, I've never heard that term. I was shocked. With Zoom bombing. I was just like, what does that mean? Okay,
Yeah, I guess
well,
at that point we got offered like Zoom and left like a live webinar. There are like a lot of things you didn't have first in mind which could happen, like especially like we were a growing community, but not that big that we have guessed it would have happened, to be honest.
well, yeah, I
Thinking
guess.
like, okay, maybe in 2-3 years we can think about it, but not right now.
Yeah, that's true. But I guess it may have been better if it happened when it was still a smaller thing, when not so many
Absolutely.
people were exposed to it. Say.
Absolutely.
Oh,
There was
geez.
another interesting case I can recall, but it's a bit political. But we have this poll asking where people come from, and we had a list of countries. And of course, in some regions, it's very difficult question, and it turned out that some region was not listed very correctly, let's say, and some people were not happy about it. So that was also something we haven't thought about because we downloaded the list. I don't remember, from Wikipedia or from somewhere. So we haven't taken this into account.
Right. I think I have heard of other YouTube, like I follow other YouTubers just on my own time kind of thing, but like they've had similar issues where they did sort of a poll, and then yeah, it was got a bit political unnecessarily because like they didn't know or didn't realize, let's say, they just sort of take a screenshot and post it, and then next thing you know. So you guys also ran into that issue, and without getting into names of anything, but like you also ran into that issue. Geez, okay. I didn't realize. Yeah, that's
not
tough,
something
right?
you expect. It was not intentional, of course. It just happened. We fixed that.
That's tough. Yeah. How do you deal with that? Do you just sort of like unpost, or is it more complicated?
I think now we tend to ask people from which area of the world they are or from which regions they are. So we don't say exactly which country it is.
I
We
see.
try to take out the political, just like fact geographically, like to say, okay, which geographic part, to try to really corner around all this political stuff, which could be, well, yes.
that's yeah, it's difficult. It's a difficult problem. Okay. Wow. I mean, in some aspects that's also educational, right? Because yeah, different parts of the world have different concerns that maybe in Europe, or I guess most of us are, is not truly, doesn't have the same type of concerns, let's say, at least not to that extent. So yeah, it's an educational exercise also. You'll learn.
True.
You'll live to learn.
When you mention like regional differences, that's something I really like value in our community as well, but also like which reflects in our like team members, say it that way.
Like it's really great that we have a very international team, and that's part that we enjoy a lot, that we bring together different cultures, and we learn a lot about what's important and what to pay attention to in different regions. So it's also part of the experience and part of learning process for us.
Yeah, that's true, and it's also interesting to, at least I found, going to conferences, global or international conferences around the world for my fusion work, that different regions of the world also think about problems in a different way. So just discussing the actual technical problem with them also is like, as communication differences aside, the technical problems also they have a different point of view on, and sometimes that's very, very enlightening to have that discussion with them. Do you find that in your channel also that the different presenters that come from internationally present things in different ways or have different emphasis or different ways of communicating?
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Do do
That's
you do you know some like interesting things that popped up?
well, like the most in my from my point of view, like the most interesting part was like if you have like for example like a Spanish speaking person, they usually like really like to play around with words and to analogies and like everything. They try to use their language very well and
Mhm.
don't focus so much on the presentation itself. While if you go more like to I can't pinpoint like one specific country right now, but like you can see really different like some presenters are really focusing on like having really well designed or well done and presentation, and they don't focus on so much what they are saying. They try to let the presentation itself speak. So that's sometimes a really interesting um well way of facing the problem to present your work.
Yeah, I think that is always valuable to get these different points of view or also presentation skills and focuses, right? You can always take a little bit here and there and try to improve your own way of doing things based off of what they present to you. Now,
Exactly.
yeah, exactly. And I think that that's extremely valuable. Now, I guess one thing that I am interested in is sort of like the feedback you get from the people who come to present or come to view your presentations. Is there a lot of feedback, or like have you got some interesting feedback, that any notable examples of things that was sort of like, oh yeah, that is a thing, right? Like we should pay attention about that, right? So
I think, well, we try to improve that part by doing polls at the end of the presentation, and occasionally we do get some comments how to improve. Although most of the time we focus on what time fits the most for our audience, because it's a very tricky question for us, taking into account different time zones. We try to make it best for all people in our audience, but unfortunately, of course, some of them will have to watch it on YouTube channel because it's impossible to match the time zones. Apart from that, I think duration of the presentation was also important feedback. Now we have limit of about 20-30 minutes. I think before we didn't have limit at all, and occasionally it was taken a bit too long, and I could see that about maybe after half an hour, we were losing people from the audience, unfortunately. So it was also something to learn.
yeah, okay, that's a good point. And so this is actually funny because I have this channel co-hosted with another colleague of mine. His name is Luca. We were having discussions before, and he was just like, we should really cut down to half an hour. And I'm just like, but we like sometimes I find in the conversation like this, it takes half an hour to hit a point where we're actually comfortable talking to each other. And then we can have a real conversation, but that's after half an hour, right? So um it is interesting, like the attention span of someone who's viewing versus attention span of somebody who's actively participating is also different, and it's true that, so you found that half an hour sort of is the line for your
Yes, well,
viewers.
we can separate maybe, because like if you have these master classes, then we really go like on more time, like 1 hour, 1/2 an hour, because then you have like this kind of lecture structure. You found the foundation, and then you gradually like step onto the points itself. So I feel it depends like what kind of message you want to transport. Like if people know it's going to be a lecture, they expect more knowledge and they invest more time into it. That's what I try to learn from the audience. And if you have like just like a talk, people will go into much detail if you give them too much time. And this detail for most of audience, which we are having right now, is not really that valuable or not at that point valuable. So it really is, well, the, what you can say it, how to say it, the golden cut, or I don't know, like it's these 20 minutes, half an hour. You can find this time in your daily life because like if you have longer time and a scientist or whatever you do, it's like really hard to squeeze it in. And we don't have like a podcast where you can just listen it doing like cooking or whatever. In our format, usually you try to follow the line of thought and which is underlined with the presentation. So you really like engulfed fully into the presentation. When a podcast, and I consume it myself, I do cooking, I cleaning, I do sports around, so it's pretty easy, and I don't feel like this time constraint is really there. Or like, is it different? You know?
Yeah, that's that. I get it. And to be fair, that is the advised way of listening to this for those who are listening is really to have it in the background while you're doing other things that do not require like your full mental focus. It's really the best ways that to have to ingest these long form conversations. But I think that also the extended time gives us a more substance in terms of we can dig a bit deeper into topics that are of interest, let's say, to all of us. Yeah. Okay. Absolutely. I think it's just all about different forms of media and different forms of how to get the message out there. That's true. So have you in your experience found that maybe a student or someone has really improved their presentation skills over time? Do you follow up with your presenters in that aspect?
I think we have some presenters who come back to us after a couple of years. It's not very often case, but they usually have quite a lot of experience already. So from the beginning, they were experienced speakers, and both of the presentations went really well, I think. But it would be interesting to see the progress and to invite more people from the talks in the beginning of our platform.
And
Yeah.
I want to add to that. Well, usually in the beginning, for sure, we have known the people like in person or like seen them before presenting. And sometimes you could notice that they implemented advices you have given them before, or they heard before from feedback. And that's really nice to see. Like sometimes you're like really happy for them because they really got the point there. But like in the channel, like in a broad perspective and a visible audience, we, as Katja already said, yes.
Yeah, I guess it is hard to keep up with it with all the different people that come onto your channel. So, but it would be interesting to know if there is some effective form of helping the speakers improve. But of course, yeah, maybe that's just being idealistic on my part. So okay, all right. I mean, like in that sense, though, do you feel that the channel that you've put together is achieving the goals that you've put forward for it, not just your own personal goals, but also the community, let's say, larger community goals?
Well, for this question, I like to look on the numbers, say that way. And of course, we have grown really big since we started, and we get also like not only like on the YouTube channel or Facebook fans, whatever, but also like on the attendees during the talk itself. They have grown constantly. So taking this as a yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
What's your like average viewership size like per presentation average?
I think we have 10 to 15 attendees at the presentation itself, but there is also a number of people who watch it on YouTube later.
That's a
So
big thing.
it can be larger. And we also broadcast it on Facebook. So the number is a bit higher than the actual numbers that you see on Zoom.
Absolutely, yeah.
And in master classes, usually we have like through 30 to 100 sometimes. So it really, you really see like there's a difference, and like there's really, well, people like it.
Yeah. Speaking about numbers, as Tobias has mentioned, I wanted to mention that again, it started as a group of friends in a way, and most of attendees, they were people whom we would know. But now I noticed that, for instance, some professor from Argentina join us, or some people I hear about them for the first time, or on the other hand, some famous, more well-known scientists join us. And also how our Facebook community is growing. Like now we have about 500 followers and likes. So I see that it's not only Fusion EP program graduates anymore, but indeed people start to repost our events, and some other scientific channels share our events. I'm happy to see that.
And that must be really nice that it starts to grow to the point where people are recommending you. And have you had instances where people would come to you and ask like, oh, I would like to present, like rather than you have to continually do outreach to get presenters? Has this happened yet?
Correct me if I'm wrong, Katya, but I think it did happen, yes.
Yes, I think it happened a couple of times. People contacted us on Facebook and asked to give a talk, and it went really great after all.
Yeah, that must be really nice. You know, it's rewarding, you know, that the channel is getting out there enough that there are people interested in, you know, giving a talk just without you asking them.
Yes.
Okay, and then like sort of like the future, I guess, of your platform. Where do you see this going? What do you think it could do if there was enough time and enough interest?
That's a really good question. Like first, I think many people don't see like the kind of work which is like behind just having this channel. Like we have 9 members in the background who are like working constantly to the media team, like we mentioned already, who's like processing the files we downloaded to make them nicer for YouTube ready, and posting the post, like preparing everything, finding new speakers. Like there's so many going in the behind, so you really underestimate in the beginning how much work it is in the end just to have like this one presentation every week. So this is something which is really nice, that we can keep it going and we can more provide it like really regularly and not really occasionally. So
what presentation a week is quite a lot, you know. I mean, our field is not super small, but also not that large, right? Like this hard
so
to get.
exactly, that's the kind of work you need. Well, we're trying to provide to have like really constant input of information and to connect people there.
So in terms of like, the long
future,
term,
the long term, well, of course, like more people attending, more people is always better, and because then we can see like what is the audience actually like, what do they want to have. This is like our first point of view right now. We also new goal for 2022 to see like what service do they really want to us to provide. So we don't have like this goal to say like 1 million. Okay, it would be nice to have 1 million people or subscribers.
Of course.
Of course, but it's not that we say we do it for the numbers, you know. It's
Right,
just like we want to see like what kind of knowledge do they want to have. Do they want to have, maybe we were also thinking about communication as well. If we make a mini series like about like how to make a presentation, or like what can you, how to set a Zoom call, or whatever, like these different things we were thinking about, but we didn't have the time or the manpower right now to implement it, or even first to ask like what would you like us to, or would you like to see.
Yeah, actually, in that sense, one thing that I am very, of course, interested in is scientific communication in general. And like, given all the recordings and presentations that you have done already, sort of like a compilation of like best lessons or of it, or like prime examples of what is a good presentation and what is a good method. Maybe not the whole presentation, but this particular thing was like really excellent. Stuff like that. It could be done. Of course, like, I'm not asking you to do it, but like I could see that being valuable, right? So it's true that you do have quite a lot of information at your disposal already, let's say. Yeah.
But also like what the next challenge we are facing right now is like how to okay, well, people are like, we are getting older. We had like our Fusion EP master degree was like a couple years ago.
Mm.
So how to transfer the knowledge we have and like the experience we have like doing this channel to it's a young generation, like how to do it, how to do it properly, that it keeps the machine going. This is also like something I didn't think of at first that it would be like a problem. I was thinking, okay, well, it somehow happens.
Yeah. I guess, yeah, you joined because you thought it was a good method or a good way to improve your personal skills, but also at some point, like it's nice to transfer that to another, give another student or someone who's interested a chance, right?
Yes.
Now we have people in the team who just started their masters, or they're about to start it because of the pandemic. Their first year was delayed. So it's indeed younger generation, and we would like to have our team, let's say, self-sustainable and to be able to work independently and continue this even when people who started the platform will not have that much time to manage it.
Yeah, so I didn't realize you guys had such a large team. Like I knew there were some people who must be working on the videos and stuff, but like not that many. So I'm also then curious how you guys do your like your group gatherings, or how do you organize the work? Is it like all Zoom, or is it only half the people can attend every time because everybody's kind of everywhere? How does this work?
Well, you mentioned it pretty well actually. Like in the beginning, it was everybody known each other personally, so it was like easier barrier and easier to manage. And like if you have 3-4 people, it's easy to find a Zoom meeting. But to manage time of like almost 10 people together, different time zones and everything around, like you have holidays, they have like a project to finish. It's quite hard. Like we are trying different modi, and we are still like trying to find what is the best modi operandi, like which was going to work best.
Mhm.
But yes, Zoom is definitely a useful tool for us in
Okay.
that way.
Is it mostly just scheduling everybody's time so that everybody's free at the same time, or is it also like other constraints that prevent people from, let's say, meeting?
What do you mean by that? Like usually,
Well, sometimes it's more like, if they don't have adequate, what do you call it? Not resources, but like, a good internet connection, or a laptop that has a camera or something like that, right? Like, is that the issue sometimes, or is it mostly just they don't have the time in their schedule?
I
well,
think it's mostly time.
Okay.
mostly time. Well, sometimes you have like a broken camera or like your microphone is broken. Well, that happens, but it's not the reason or not the main cause.
Mhm. Okay, fair enough. And like getting everybody together is one thing, but also with such a large group, it's hard to maybe keep focus in some ways, right? Do you find that, or no? Everybody's quite well oriented, and they know what they're doing and what they have to do.
I think now we try to structure it in a way that we have several groups doing different tasks, like we have hosting team, media team, grinding team, and each team has their own meetings, smaller ones, so it's easier to manage, and they discuss things that are probably not that interesting for others. Like I'm not personally very interested in video processing stuff, and I don't want to spend couple of hours discussing that, and vice versa. No offense.
So what is your let's say task or the point of interest for you then?
Yeah, so I'm in the hosting team. So
You're on the hosting team. Okay, so you're more like the interface with all the other speakers and stuff like this.
yeah, I'm the person who's seen, but we have a great team to work with media and social networks, and they're doing really great job, and it's a really challenging one. And I have no idea how they manage. I wouldn't be able to do that. But I think this structure with smaller groups, that helps to keep it going and to make meetings shorter and more fruitful, let's say.
It's really like a mini business. You've got like your different departments and they all do different things. That's crazy. I really didn't realize how big it has grown.
Well,
I think none of us realized that it will happen that way.
Yeah, nobody did. And actually, like, it was born out of, not because like we have this department structure, but like some people have different interests, and also want to try different skills. And that's the really great thing in the team. Like, you find everybody has like some special kind of skills, and they can apply it on their way, and they really enjoy doing it. And in the beginning, there was like this part where everybody has to do something they didn't like that much. But I feel right now we came to the point where everybody's like just doing what they really would like to do or to contribute. And yeah.
Okay, yeah, that's super cool. I just did not realize it was so big. I mean, when I first joined when Katya asked me to give my presentation, it was, how many people was there then at that point, Katya? It was you and Alexis, and that's all I knew.
I think back at that time we had maybe 5 people on the team.
Oh wow! Already?
Yeah,
Okay.
it was smaller, but it's still it was still quite a lot.
Okay. Okay.
Back at that time, it was enough to process the videos, but now it's indeed growing. But by the way, it brings me to the question. You have mentioned that we can ask questions as well.
Of course, absolutely, yeah.
Because it was great to have you as a speaker at our platform, and I was wondering what was your experience, and from the speaker's side, what do you think a speaker could gain from such an event, or how we could improve experience as a speaker?
So for me personally, it was the first time I gave a presentation on the Zoom platform. So that was already a huge point of learning for me, because I wasn't used to the digital aspect of everything. Speaking to a webcam was also a bit, at that point in time, a bit like, okay, I'm not actually talking to a person. This is strange. So, but like there's someone on the other side, but it just doesn't feel the same. So that was difficult. And then of course, getting used to the fact that there's this like big monitor in front of you that's got like your slide on it. And it's very easy without personal feedback to just start talking nonstop, like endlessly about some like small topic inside your slides. So getting the timing down, it had to be a lot more disciplined because you didn't have the big structure of let's say a conference, a live conference that you had to with a chair and everything. So that for me was probably the biggest takeaways when I did the presentation for Fusion EP Talks. Because I mean, I have done also many presentations since then, and so it's hard to attribute, let's say, particular presentation skills to each particular presentation. But for sure, those two stand out when I think about my experience with your platform. Yeah. And I do have to say that it was a nice experience. It prepared me for where we are now, where everything is by Zoom almost, which is unfortunate in a way, but also good to be prepared, right? So I think on that note, though, unless you have another question, do you have another question? I don't want to cut you short. I think we are reaching about time for our episode. So I'd like to give the last, few minutes for each of you to promote something. It could be, of course, something professional or something personal, whatever you want. So we'll start, I guess, with Tobias.
Well, to promote first, I really I don't know who's listening, maybe you have not started your masters, but I really encourage you to look into the Fusion Masters program. It's currently done by 6 universities all over Europe, and well, all of us three here did it, so you can see what happens in the end. But also you go through a lot of hand-on experience, which I really personally enjoyed a lot, really being able to be in Ekaterina, to be able to be in IPP Prague. And you can also choose what, there's maybe a good question we never mentioned, what does Fusion EP mean? It's Fusion Engineering Physics. And it really focuses on highlights the 2 tracks you can do in this master's program, which is Fusion Science or Fusion Engineering. So we have these experts and these really small classes, usually it's really, really nice master program. Have a look into it. Website is em-master-fusion.org.
I'll put a link in the description, so
perfect.
Don't worry about that. Yeah.
And maybe if you want to read something on it, there's a really nice paper came out, I think this year, in the beginning of this year. It's called the European Master of Science in Nuclear Fusion Engineering Physics, 15 years of experience. So maybe you can link it as well. It's really interesting read if you want.
Okay, yeah, please send me the links and I'll make sure to put it in the description, of course.
Great. Yes, and of course, if you have time and you want to learn something about fusion, or if you want to maybe present yourself, your work you have, and to try to practice, or just to share it, we are happy to have your speaker, and for sure have it as attendee as well. So yeah.
Yes, and that probably goes without saying that I will also link your own platform and link to your channel and everything in the description. I encourage all our viewers and listeners to attend if you have interest in the more technical aspects. I think it's really a nice platform for getting your feet into the water, but without being extremely overwhelming, getting washed over by a tsunami or something. And then you, Katya, do you have something you want to promote?
Well, I can totally relate to what Tobias has said about Fusion EP Master Program, because personally for me it was life-changing experience. It was totally new, not only in sense of learning science, but just life in different countries, meeting people from all over the world, learning how to communicate with different people, how to present my work, lots of cultural experience. So it's really worth trying. And I believe that even if you will not continue your career in Fusion, it will still be very valuable experience. And of course, feel free to attend our Fusion EP Talks channel. And I think now it's an issue that most of us, we focus on a very narrow field that we work on. And sometimes we tend to neglect what other people are doing. And I think it's really low pressure opportunity to learn something new without taking too much time, too much efforts.
Okay, great. Thank you. I also wholeheartedly stand behind the Fusion EP program, being an alumni myself. It was a great experience to, not just learn about plasma physics and fusion, but travel around Europe and meet people and sort of get the whole package all in one program. So for sure, absolutely, I agree that these are solid endorsements by your part. Okay, well then, with that, thank you, Tobias and Katya, for being guests on today's episode. And we'll see you all on the next episode of Coffee Breakdown. Bye.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.